Okay, guys, welcome back to the Dot Wave podcast. This is episode 20. Today, we're going to be with Jack O'Connell of O'Connell Sound. I went to college with Jack. He is a phenomenal drummer, an excellent mix engineer, producer, recording engineer. I don't know if you play other instruments. I'm sure you do because you're extremely fucking talented. So it's great to talk to you again. Great to reconnect.
Thanks, man. It's great to be here. It's good to see you. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a really, really long time.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. We graduated 2016, I think.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I dropped out last semester and ended up finishing a little bit later, but
Oh,
yeah,
gosh, I didn't know that.
it's a whole fun story about being young and a complete fucking mess. But we're past that.
Yeah. We can save that for another
Yeah.
time.
I think that's a pretty typical story for a lot of musicians.
Oh yeah.
Just as messy as my fucking hair is right now. Oh well. Gonna roll with it, man. It's cool. What you been up to since then?
Oh man. I have been working at Towson University. I never left, believe it or not. And I have just kind of been doing my own thing as far as the studio goes. I've been in some bands here and there, and just kind of trying to make music more of a full-time thing currently, but really just trying to, keep my schedule filled up as much as I can. So it's really the main things are working at Towson, playing gigs on the side. I've been doing these cover gigs around Fells Point, which is a whole nother world. And then just doing studio projects as well. So it's been a crazy journey, but yeah, I'm constantly learning new things and meeting new kinds of people, and it's been fun just meeting all different walks of life, different musicians. Everyone has a different outlook on music and how the audience perceives music, and how just how recording should work. And yeah, I mean, it's really cool.
That's one of the most fun parts about recording. Is like every time you think you have it figured out, somebody comes along and shows you something that like completely turns it on its head, and you're like, I've been thinking about this all wrong. Holy shit.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm never the guy that says, it's my way or the highway. Like this is the only way you can do things. I think I've just, I'm all about collaborating, and man, I don't even know where to start. It's just, I'm always working on different shit. So yeah, I mean, I'm down to talk about whatever you want.
Oh yeah. I think part of being a musician in 2022, or just an artist in general, is like you have to wear a ton of different hats. Like you can't just expect one avenue to work out. So like for me, I've been branching out into like YouTube and video production. I've been working with like a smaller like indie label, just doing content for them because like why the fuck not, right?
Right.
You don't
Yeah.
really know what's gonna stick until you try.
Yeah, exactly. No, one thing I've been doing is I used to kind of going off of what you're saying. Like I used to kind of do everything with my productions, all the editing, all like recording, editing, mixing, like the whole shebang. And some of the best advice I ever got was just like, you don't have to do everything. And I think it's part of me wanting that control of the project and making sure it's, the way I want it. But also it's more of a learning experience when I kind of hand it off to someone to check out like the editing, or try a mix out or something. I've kind of, while I agree, like I think it's important to have, be able to wear many different hats. I got into a bad habit where I was doing just that with productions, and I started handing stuff off to people, and it's made me a better producer. It's made my production sound better, and it's yeah, I kind of wish I did that way sooner, but again, like I'm
I'm
still
that
learning.
is extremely relevant to me because I'm in the process of I'm just about to start mixing an album that I've been doing fucking everything on for a band. And
Yeah.
it's been really hard not to burn out when, you know, there's one week where you might have to do 40 hours of drum editing in between sessions. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
fuck, man.
I I got I'm blessed to have met, and I'm pretty sure you're familiar with. Are you familiar with the URM
Yeah.
Academy? Yeah. Okay. So when I joined that, that was the biggest takeaway for me from that was just the um mass amount of other contacts of other engineers, and I could just post on their forum like, hey, I need help with something, and now I have compiled this list of people that I trust, and I can put off the monotonous kind of non-creative side of production so I can focus more on, you know, the song itself. And because but no, I agree, I've done that exact same thing, and I'm getting to the mixing stages of another project as well that I've been working on for quite some time. And I'm debating on like, do I really want to mix this? Like, I feel like I've kind of had enough hands in this pot, you know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
might want that second set of ears, but we'll see, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's like your perspective just gets fucked over time. Like you can't just approach it um fresh. Like
Right.
like mixing is supposed to be like, as I'm sure you've figured out over the years, like it's important to get all the editing excuse me, done before that you actually sit down for mixing. Because if you sit down to mix and then you have to start editing, it's like perspective is
Oh yeah.
gone. Like you need to
No
just be able to
way.
sit down, just work, be like,
Yeah.
oh, that's cool. The kick sounds like this. Let's do that. Like your gut instinct is really, really important. And it kind of like poisons that or makes that perspective all murky when you've just been editing stuff for so long. So yeah, I'm at that point. The next big project I do, I'm gonna start handing stuff off to other people. And this podcast is kind of, you know, it helps with me just like connecting with other people in the area. Like, hey, what's up?
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
dude, building
Yeah.
that network, right?
Yeah. No, that's awesome. It's yeah, it's always a challenge to kind of let go of your baby,
Yeah,
and that you've been working so hard on for so long and just hand it off to someone else. But I have learned over the years that when I, especially with mixing, before I hand it off, like it has to be at least not even from like a rough mix standpoint, but from a arrangement production standpoint, like it has to be like 95% of the way there. And I'm lucky to have people that I trust to mix my work, that they know how I work. So they kind of already have an idea of what I'm trying to get with the mix, just push it to that next level. And yeah, but no, you're right. That's super important. Like getting everything edited and just everything should be ready to go. So when you do go sit down, you know, you're in that creative headspace, not that, you know, oh, is this transient hitting the grid headspace? Like that's not, you know what I mean? That's not what music is about.
yeah. It does seem to get more and more important as you learn stuff and you keep pushing for like that modern polished sound, which it seems like you pushed for as well. You just notice that more and more editing is required to even get it there. Like over the last year, I've started to not just use trigger on stuff, but now I'm like capturing the MIDI from everything and bouncing that MIDI to another track and then editing the MIDI. And now I'm using that MIDI to trigger gates. And if it's like not phase perfect, then like you'll hear a little pop, motherfucker. Like,
It never ends, man.
oh
It
man,
never
yeah,
yeah, I find myself, I'll be working on a project and I'll be like, all right, like it's time to mix this thing. And then I'll play it back and I'm like, oh my God, this, you know, these overheads are completely out of phase, and it's just not sounding good because you're not really listening for it, when you're working on a project. But again, like, I, over the years, I've learned from the get-go, before I start pressing record now, I'm very adamant about getting things sounding good at the source. I know that's such a cliche thing to say, but it's so true. And the performance, if the performance isn't good, then you got to say something. I think I am doing the artist a disservice if I don't say something. And I'm doing a disservice to myself, honestly, because I don't want to put my name on something that that isn't emotionally fulfilling, or just, something that gets me, kickstarted, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I think it's kind of the producer's job is to be like almost like a coach of like a football team or something like that, where you're like motivating people to do the best possible thing. And if you think about how, sports coach, even though sports really aren't related to music and in many ways, but if you think about like the tactics they use, it's almost like a psychological thing. Like you got to be kind of manipulative, but you're doing it for a really good reason. You have to figure out what you should say to the person to get them hyped up, or kind of steer them in the direction that you want them to go, that is going to be the best direction. The best way I can think about it is, let's say you're a producer, you're working with the artist who's not, skill level is just like not really all there, which I think has happened to everybody more often than not when you're starting out, right? So my favorite technique for those people is I would find something that they would do that I would be like, oh, that's cool. Like that one thing that they did was really cool. And I'd find a way to slip it to them, like, whatever what you did right there, that's awesome. Like that should be your thing. Like you should do that more. You
Yeah.
know, and then they feel like it's their idea almost, and they start just putting it in more and more. And then all of a sudden the music's improved dramatically.
Right. Well, it's important to hone in on the artist's strengths and kind of see what where their sound could take you. Because I never want to be labeled as the pop punk guy or the pop rock guy or whatever. I'm more of, okay, maybe your general vibe is pop punk, but when I listen to the band, what is the vibe that I'm getting? And I kind of really try to listen to that, and what's something cool that we can make out of this band that only this band could do. You know what I mean? So, and over the years, I've been working with a lot of singer songwriters and it's not even really because I choose to. I think people, a lot of singer songwriters like working with me because I am a drummer, and it's what usually happens is they'll bring me a batch of songs, and I will help them kind of, rearrange it, do pre-pro and stuff. But what usually happens is I am the one that plays the drums on the record, which I really like because I can kind of start that foundation of the arrangement. And it's almost like a passive aggressive control kind of thing, because once the drums are laid down, it's like the song can only go so many different ways. And I know the whole thing about doing drums last now, which is cool,
I
to
don't
each
do
their
that
own.
shit. No.
What's that?
Drums first. I'm
Yeah.
definitely that kind of guy.
I get it. However, for me, for my workflow, I think because I'm a drummer, and maybe I'm biased because of that, I find like I have more flexibility when I put the drums first, because I can just I don't know. It's hard to explain, I guess, but when a singer-songwriter has some sort of arrangement down, I can really make almost like a demo, like a starting demo with a drum track, and then we can continue from there, with everything else. It's
Well,
just
the
so
other
much.
thing is like, sorry to interrupt you. You're
Yeah,
like,
no, go ahead.
when you have the drums first, you're tracking to the drums rather than trying to get the drums that you just lay down to conform to the track that you're just playing. So
Right.
There's been plenty of times where a band will record the drums that have been, sure, they've been edited to the grid, but maybe I'll just turn the click off when they're playing the guitar or something.
Right.
If it feels
Yeah.
good with the drums, then who gives a shit if it's like perfectly on?
Yeah. And maybe doing drums last is a good way, if you don't have too much time in the studio to do pre-pro or whatever, and you want that extra flexibility. However, before I go in the studio to track drums, I want to make sure like me and the artist are completely satisfied. And it's really just, I'm playing along to a scratch guitar and vocal, or even further if we've done it. But yeah, I never want to start tracking if we're not all happy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want that in the back of my mind. Like, well, we might like want to change, like make this bridge cut in half. It's like, no, like why are you doing pre-pro then? Like, get it figured out first. But, everyone's got different budgets, time constraints. I get it. But ideally, you get the best possible version of, the song that, the singer songwriter or whoever, just the lead singer, main songwriter of a band, whatever. But to go off my point, I have enjoyed just doing the singer songwriter thing because it's less cooks in the kitchen. I feel like I can really have a better connection with the artist, and it's not this, big, pot of musicians. Sometimes, there's some bickering that happens, and then, I have to be the guy sometimes that says, look, I'm the middleman. I'm gonna help you guys decide. But
Yeah, I kind of prefer working just one-on-one with singer-songwriters as well. Even though some of the singer-songwriters I work with it's still like metal, and then we need to find session musicians, or I end up playing on the track. But it's nice in that I feel like you can really it's just something about the one-on-one format. One, you get to be way more creatively involved, which is cool because they'll usually bring you like a handful of riffs, and they'll like really want you to help collaborate with them because they're lacking other band members to bounce it off of. And then two, I feel like they just become really, really in tune with like your workflow. And over time, maybe 3 or 4 songs in, like you guys are just like synced up. Like they'll
mhm.
bring you stuff and you're like, that's what I would have done. Interesting. Like they start to pick up on stuff way quicker than a band where they all have their own creative vision.
Right. I think the main thing is when doing those kinds of projects, the artist has to have even more of an open mind because, you're getting these session musicians that all they're kind of hearing is that demo, so they need to trust the session musician that, they're going to do their take on, their song. And yeah, you can give notes and stuff, but it's definitely, no matter what, it's going to be different than a band that has been rehearsing in a space together and they're constantly, um, you know, bouncing ideas off of each other. Whereas with a session musician, it's like, okay, we have drums, guitar, bass, even like vocals done, and we need keyboards. So you're going to send them a rough mix and you're going to say, you can, give them a general idea of what you want, but unless you're doing something where you're like zooming with them and in real time, you're seeing them record it, you kind of have to, you have to know that that's kind of the name of the game, and it's time consuming and it takes a lot of communication. But I try to make sure that people that want to do those kinds of projects know that ahead of time, because it's definitely different than just having 4 people coming in saying we have a song and drummer's going to play the drums, bass player's going to play bass, guitarist going to play guitar, vocalists are going to sing. So
In a way, I almost prefer it though, just because I'm sure you've run into a situation where a band comes in and then there's like things about the song that you could improve. Like it's a little long-winded. There's sections that could be chopped down, things could be rearranged a little bit. But with the band, they've usually been working on the song together for like a year plus, and it's like a case of demoitis almost. It's like stuck in their minds. Like, this is how it is. Nope, this is how we've been playing it.
Right.
I've encountered that a lot, and that happened a lot on the project that I'm working now. And like, I love those dudes. I mean, I've done an album for them before, so like, shout out to Earthworm Von Doom. I'm not talking shit. I'm only kind of talking shit about you. I get,
Yeah.
I see them tomorrow. I'll tell them I'm talking shit.
Oh,
Um,
cool. Yeah.
no,
Come watch.
super good friends. But and we've had a couple of times where we butted heads where I'm like, that just doesn't. It would sound so much better. They're like, that's just how it is. Like, okay,
Yeah,
cool.
that is that is tough. I really try before we start recording to go over all that kind of stuff. And I luckily, well, I don't know, it's a double-edged sword because I have a full-time job and I am so busy all the time that if I'm going to spend my free time working in the studio, it's going to be with someone that I really care about, and I really, I'm invested in the project. So honestly, a lot of times, you know, if it is that kind of project where it's just, you know, I want you to record my song, I usually don't take it. Honestly,
Mm,
I'm less of a, I would call myself less of a recording engineer and more of a producer. And that's not to say there's something wrong with being a good engineer, but I'm I'm really not that guy. I want to kind of further your music, and I just, the first draft of a song is rarely the end product of a song. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And I just think it's important to keep an open mind and have that trust. And at this point, you kind of, if you call me up and want me to work with you, you obviously like something about me to have hit me up. You know what I mean? So I just, I just think it's important to have that trust and communication.
yeah. I completely agree. So let's switch gears a little bit. You're saying that you
Yeah,
have
yeah.
a full-time job. So I know
Yes.
that for me, I've been full-time doing audio for fuck, how long? Like a year and a half now.
Mhm.
And the hardest thing for me, this isn't just me flexing, this is going somewhere, I promise. The hardest thing for me is like, as I was working other jobs, just having the availability to even um get my business to the point where I was able to go full time. Like, if I was working 4 or 5 nights at a restaurant, and sometimes they'd have me on weekends or something, and I'd be like, yeah, I can record you guys Sunday at 2. And they'd be like, well, we can't do that. It's like, well, I don't get to work with that client.
Yeah.
It was really tough. Like, at some point, I just had to commit, like, okay, I got to scale back my hours at the other place. I'm going to make less money for a little bit. It's going to be really fucking scary. But luckily, it's worked out. But how do you manage that?
It is very tough. Really, mainly like what I just said. I can't take every client that comes my way, or artist. I don't really like the word client, but it kind of, you know, I mean, it is a business when all is said and done. It's money for services. But anyway, yeah, it's really just all about time management. I try to, at least a week ahead of time, say, these are my work hours.
Hmm.
Can you do, you know, such and such a night? I try to work the morning shift as much as possible, so I have the night free. Sometimes, excuse me, it doesn't work out.
Same,
Uh,
same here.
and then I work, and especially, unfortunately for me, working event services, I have to work a lot of nights and weekends. But what my job allows me to do, which is great, I have a little bit of a hurry up and wait kind of job, where I'll set up an event and I'll have some time during the event to work in Pro Tools, get some editing done or
Mm.
whatever, and then I strike the event. And so I guess my answer would be, I make a compromise working a full-time job to be able to get some of my work done at work, and hopefully I don't get fired from saying this. But that's really the honest truth. And I mean, I've been there for 9 years, and I think I'm good at my job. It's not like I'm a slacker, but I really do. If I have free time at work, I'm going to try to be as productive as I can. And
Yeah.
if I have to get a vocal comp done or something, or I have to get something to my editor or whatever. But yeah, man, it is tough. I'm looking to take music more full time. I've actually been looking at Nashville, and I'm strongly considering moving there. So that's a whole nother
It'd be
kind of
awesome.
story. But yeah, I'm trying to do the full time thing, and I admire you for being able to do this full time, because I know it's not easy, and I know there's a lot of scheduling involved and time management. But
And sometimes it's slow and then you make no money. That's
exactly,
scary when that happens, man.
for me, it's the balance of personal projects
Mm,
versus paid projects, where always the paid projects have to take precedence. But I it's tough because the personal projects I'm a little more emotionally invested in. Not to
sure.
say that the paid projects aren't any good, but it's just the nature of the game. But
Yeah. I really don't have time to work on personal projects now, which is kind of a bummer. Yeah. There's a lot of nights where I'll find myself, or a lot of afternoons or whatever, where I'm like, I know that I could write a killer song. Like I have that feeling. I'm like,
yeah,
oh, cool. But then I sit down, I'm like, well, I gotta edit these drums or work on this master or like, yeah, sacrifice, man. You gotta kind of just do what's making you money. And unfortunately, I'm making fucking no money from the music that I write. So, oh well.
it's it's almost like a tease when I look at my hard drive now, because I have all the stuff I'm working on, but then I got this folder full of my band stuff, or stuff that I've been putting off for a while that isn't has kind of dissolved, but I still want to kind of rework it and put it out. And it's it's so tough, man. But again, like I truly believe with the right time management and just wanting it enough, you can get it done. But with a full-time job and doing the gigging and everything, it has been really tough for me. And I will admit, I sometimes don't have the quickest turnaround times, but again, that is communicated ahead of
Yeah.
time.
Well, and your quality speaks for itself. So I think if anybody gets actually annoyed at that, then fuck them. Your shit sounds
Thanks, man.
good.
Yeah, I mean, I really try to put in 110% in everything I do. I don't, I it yeah, it takes time. This stuff takes time, and I'm not, you know, I'm um, you know, I'm not Chris Lord Algae. I don't have all those years under my belt. So yeah, things are gonna take some time. But also it's like I'm not charging out the wazoo or anything, but
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. Speaking of charging, do you tend to do an hourly or a project fee?
it kind of depends. I for a while, well, and I still do. It depends on the project and what the time constraints are. Usually tracking is hourly and then mixing is flat. However, if it gets to be ridiculous with the length of tracking or whatever, I try to work with the artist. I'm not going to expect them to, I try to be fair,
Yeah.
because when all said and done, especially for me just starting out trying to build my portfolio, I I care about it just as much as the artist. I want it to sound good. So it's the toughest thing, and I've been running into this a little bit recently is just trying not to have to cut corners or anything because of budget constraints. That is the hardest thing. So I try to find a good balance, and I make sure that the my assistants and everyone that works with me gets paid. And sometimes, unfortunately, I get the, shit end of that stick. But at this point in my career, if I can at least say that I did this, then that's enough for me. And I have the luxury of saying that because I have a full-time job. You know what I mean? I'm not, bragging or anything, but that's just, yeah, that's the reality for me.
No, that and that's completely fair. Like last 2 weeks ago, I had Toby Valmis on, and Toby has a full time job as well, so he doesn't charge a whole lot, but he's able to afford nice gear, a new property and a new studio. So there are two completely different and valid approaches to this. The reality of it is with me is like I can't afford not to charge.
Oh
I just need it.
yeah,
Um,
totally.
but in terms of and that was my decision. I mean, frankly, like I it limits me in some ways. Like it's going to take me longer to own a house now than if I had just stuck with a full-time job, right? So there's pros and cons to each approach. um but in terms of hourly to project fees, I feel like hourly for me is like only if I have like the bad gut feeling that
Mm,
it's just only I don't know the artists. They seem kind of like pushy. It's like, okay, just do hourly just to be safe. Or if I have to drive somewhere, okay, hourly. That feels fair. Um, but if it's like somebody I've worked with before or just some other project, I've taken the approach of charging more just for the project. That way we could just pour the fucking hours in. And I know that, no matter how much time I put in, I'm getting paid decently enough. I'm not really worried about the hour to hour that I'm making. And it's nice because then the band doesn't have to like look at the clock. I don't have to be like, hey guys, time's up.
and that's
Do you
that's
guys want to
that's
go again?
yeah. I try to, at least when I book a session, it's in at least like a 4 hour chunk. So at least the artist knows, like, yeah, this is what this is how much time we're going to spend. This is what our goals are for the day, or just the session. And, and then at the end of the day, we figure out, what's next. What do I have to prep for the next day? What can I start, comping to send off to my editor, just keeping that ball rolling. But no, I agree with that philosophy, because yeah, hourly can get a little scary sometimes. But you got to be respectful of our time. So
Oh, sure. Yeah. And if you're working in another facility, it's like, well, you don't really have the option of not doing hourly at that point. I mean, maybe you can do a day rate, but
yeah.
yeah, not always. It doesn't always work out so clean like that. But I do
Do you
find just
work?
removing that anxiety is nice.
Yeah. Do you work in separate facilities a lot,
Nope.
or usually? Okay,
No,
gotcha.
I usually just work here. I mean, our basement's nothing special, but it's a large stone basement. It has a cool
Huh.
sound. We've got a lot of acoustic panels just kind of lining up around the drum area there. So we can get a good sound out of here. This room is like fucking with all the treatment. I mean, there's not a whole lot on the walls back here. And
Uh-huh.
granted, there's some big gaps because I'm gonna hang guitars up. It's still a work in progress, but
Yeah, yeah,
um, this room is like completely dead. So
yeah.
like this room's great. Tracking vocals, sure. I don't have to put them in a booth or anything or have them somewhere else. I'll just have them here.
Cool.
Um, yeah, no, I've been enjoying being kind of self-sufficient here. One, because it's the best part is I don't have to pay anybody else. That's my favorite part is that
Yeah.
it's not completely, the money, more money goes to me for the project that I'm doing, which is good. It allows me to keep doing this, which is nice. But two, it's just comfy. Like my bedroom's down the hall. I wake up, I walk here, and here's my office, and I don't have to zip anywhere else for anything. If a band is coming at 10, I can wake up at 9. I don't have to wake up at 7 or 8 to go somewhere. Um, but the
That's
downside is, I don't have a ton of outboard. That'd be nice. You know, I have a decent selection of mics. I don't have insane fucking ribbon rooms or any of that shit, you know? Compromises. Everything is about compromise.
Right. You use what you got. You know, use the tools you have to make, you know, the best possible product that you can. I've been doing everything, you know, in the box, you know, forever. And really it's just recording drums is my main thing, but it works out because usually, you know, I don't really like engineering myself, um, playing drums because I want to focus on performance instead of,
Sure.
you know, is, you know, the hi-hat mic weird or something. So, um, so yeah, I have a engineer friend, who I who's awesome. Shout out Mike Bridget. He's just been awesome friend and mentor to me, and he's kind of my go-to engineer. So he's kind of step one for pressing record on a project. So yeah.
It's awesome. Yeah, I was wondering how you did drums when, you know, they have to be engineered and you're the guy playing it. So that's interesting. So do you go somewhere else for that, or do you track it at your place?
Yeah. So usually how it works is after pre-pro, will the end of pre-pro to me is, we got a tempo figured out and scratch vocal and a scratch guitar. And we are, you know, we got the arrangement down. We're really stoked on it. And I pack up the session, consolidate audio files, and then I put it on a hard drive, pack up my kit, and I go to, my friend Mike Bridget's studio, who's in, he's in Waldorf. It's called the Monster House. Great spot.
Make sure to look at it.
Yeah, in fact, he's worked with Turnover, Have
Oh,
Mercy.
awesome.
He's awesome, but and he recorded my first band's record, and I learned so much from him, and we've just been friends ever since. So, and he understands my workflow. So I bring him the session, he flies the session in, and I'll even bring down some mics if needed, if I got something special that I want to do. And yeah, I set up in, I think last time it was his living room. He's kind of built out his living room as a space, and it sounds great. And yeah, and then I track drums, and he's there. We'll talk to each other from back and forth from his control room to the live room. And yeah, and that's not to say like I'm not completely not involved in drum engineering. I'll say something if needed, but he knows how I like everything.
Mhm.
And then we'll do as many takes as it needs for the song. Usually doesn't, depending on how I'm feeling that day. Doesn't take too many because I know the song and I try to rehearse at home beforehand. But then, yeah, he sends me home with all the tracks. I comp them all, and then I send them back to him for editing, and then
Mm,
sends me edited drums, and then I get started. Yeah.
that's awesome. Yeah. How important do you think mentorship is in this field?
Oh my God. I think anyone that can push you harder to do what you love deep down, like want to do, like that's what it's all about. I remember when my first band, The Chance, we were recording this record with Mike Bridget. I had just kind of been starting to dabble in recording. Maybe not just start, but it might have been like a year or two. I think, trying to remember. I think this was 2015. So yeah, I mean, we're juniors, I guess. And I was really excited about recording, but I wasn't, you know, am I going to do, like, am I going to make a business out of this? Like, am I really going to try to, you know, make money from this, or like work with other people than my friends, you know? And I remember just seeing Mike and just really admiring what he did. And he kind of just showed me, hey, maybe I can do this. And I always joke that he's like my music therapist now, because every time if I need to talk to him about some project I'm working on or something, I know he'll listen. And I actually haven't seen him in a while. It's been way too long. I was supposed to see him last weekend actually, but plans fell through. But uh, yeah, I think anyone that kind of can give you that encouragement to keep going is just so valuable. My current boss at Towson has been a huge mentor to me. I did an internship with him. I've learned a lot about live sound through him, and yeah, just working with people and getting that psychology down, working with artists, and because it's there, there's like the technical side of stuff, but recording really is like a psychological thing too. Getting the best takes out of someone, getting them in the right mindset, and because you're capturing performances.
Yeah.
Why, like, and the recording is like one thing. No one listens to usually multiple versions of a recording. You know what I mean? So you need to capture that best possible performance. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm going off on tangent now, but
Dude, you're
yeah,
fine.
I hope that
I agree. That recording is like the artist's mood at that time that they
yeah,
tracked it.
yeah,
Yeah. If
yeah,
somebody's having a shitty day, it shows. And maybe that's cool. I don't know. Depends on the material, but
right,
um
totally. I love
I think oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, well, I was gonna say I always think about I nerd out on just records all the time, like the nitty gritty of behind the scenes stuff. That was one of the first reasons why I wanted to get into recording, because I loved behind the scenes stuff. I loved to play the drums, but I always was like, why does that sound so cool? Or like, why does that person use this or whatever? But one thing I read is John Feldman, when he was recording the Used first record, is there's a song where they just throw like pots and pans at the singer, and he's just like yelling, and it sounds so dumb like when I'm just talking about, but then you hear it in the context of the song and you're like, wow, like that hits that's like what it needs. But it's literally like in the background they're throwing pots and pans at the vocalist, and
I
you
mean,
can
I think there's stories about Rick Rubin doing something similar with Korn. Like, I
oh
love
yeah,
that shit too. I mean, I've, I'm usually pretty nice to people, but there have been times where like, we had a 12-hour drum session, like, and we had the studio booked, and that was like we had to get the whole album tracked in that time.
yeah,
So it was like, okay, we have to do this, and the drummer is like just floundering, like 8 hours in,
yeah.
and I make him do push-ups. I make him like go run around the block and come back. And he comes back and he fucking nails the song. And it's like funny. I'm like, go fucking run. He's like, really? I'm
Yeah,
like, yes, go
I
do
mean,
it.
that is definitely an extreme scenario, but especially if you're prepared, you know, it kind of gets to the point. It's like, well, we're here, we're all mic'd up, we're ready to go. The song, play the song. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Um, and it's funny you talk about a drummer, because a lot of times for me, it's me we're talking about. But yeah, I recorded. I forget. It might have been 2 days, might have been one, probably was two, knowing how out of shape I am. But I tracked like 15 songs for
Holy shit.
a record, and it was pop punk, pop rock, like 200 BPMs at least. And I remember just being like, wow, I am not built for this. This is crazy. And it's always you know multiple takes of everything, because I'm always like, well, like I might have done this weird here, and so let's do it again. And oh, like the snare got a little detuned, like I'll just redo the whole thing, or but uh again, like you got to know what it takes, you got to want it, you know you got to want to make something special. So that's what I'm all about.
Yeah. Speaking of drum tracking, I tend to I've noticed nowadays, like I'd spend way less time actually tracking the drummer and more time like in the control room with the drummer, going through the takes and comping everything. I feel like
Mm,
if you like really detail oriented, then you never run into that situation where it's like you're, mixing the song or you're editing the song and you realize like this feels cool, but then like it completely kills the sustain of a cymbal when we switch to that other take there. Like, fuck.
right. Yeah. No, I think that's important. If the musician wants to be involved, I honestly, in my experience, I haven't had this too much, but if the musician wants to be involved in comping a performance, then yeah, that's great. That's one more, set of ears that, you can bounce off ideas from. I was so lucky to be able to do this. Shout out Kyle Black, who's just a great, one of my favorite engineers, producers. I think it was like, might have been like New Year's Eve or something. I was at my mom's house in the Eastern Shore, and he had just posted something on Instagram or something. He was like, I'm comping drums, if anyone wants to hang. And Kyle had mastered some songs for me before, so we kind of already knew each other. So yeah, it got to the point where it was just me and him for a while, and he was comping drums, and he was, bouncing off ideas with me. And so that was really cool. And plus I could just see his workflow and see
Yeah.
how he did stuff, and what he used for the drums and everything. But yeah, no, that's a good point, and especially if you know the song well enough that you're naturally going to switch things up here and there each take. It's fun to, see, hey, like, do you want to try this fill here, or do you like this one, better? Or you're like Stuart Copeland, where it's different every single time and you just pick one take and it's awesome no matter what. You're not gonna go wrong. But uh if only.
There's a fun anecdote um that's like vaguely related to what you just said about the drums being different every time. It was
Yeah.
an interview with the engineer who recorded Phil Collins' In the Air Tonight, and they were saying they were tracking it, and he hits that fill coming in. They're like, is he even playing? Like, they're wondering, they see him moving, so they're like turning stuff up, like getting ready, and then he actually starts coming in on it, and everything's clipping so horribly that it sounds like shit. And they're like, oh my fucking god! But like the take is like, it's that fucking Phil that's like iconic, and they
Right.
knew it was special. And then immediately Phil's like, yeah, let's try it again. And they're like, they're not going to say no to him because they're newer engineers, but at the
uh,
same time they're like, they knew it was gold. And they were like, are you sure? Like, I don't know. And he's like, yeah, take it again. So they did it, and they're overwriting all the tape. So it's like, oh fuck. And luckily he did that same exact fill again and killed him.
um
That's a fun story, man.
yeah, yeah,
Which
I
kind of
heard.
speaks to what you were saying about performances being important. Like, I've definitely kept performances where the mic clipped a little bit sometimes, if like the take is just there and it's killer. Like, I have RX, I have whatever, I'll figure something out. You can't fake emotion a second time.
Right. Yeah, I one for one project, it was kind of a virtual, remote project, and the vocalist tracked his vocals himself, and all the vocals were clipping. The gain was, he just, I don't know, the gain was too hot on his mic the whole time. And I was like, dude, I'm like really sorry, but you're gonna have to redo these. And he redid them, and the performance wasn't nearly as good. And we tried and tried, and I used RX, which is, just a insane program. But I made do with what I had, because I don't know, the to me, yeah, the performance trumps everything else. So
You
yeah,
can kind of
that was
like get away with it, honestly. Like, you can, even if you don't have RX, like there was a situation where this kind of like surfy, mathy kind of like something band was coming to me, and they recorded everything in their bedroom, and they just wanted me to mix it. They were from like California, and the vocalist clipped every single word, like you're saying. And I was like, can you guys retract this? And a day later, they're like, no, I'm going out of town. So I
Yeah.
just made do. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'll just distort the vocal more. Like, we'll just mask it. And it worked. You can't really tell
Yeah.
that it's clipping horribly all the time.
And vocals especially are tough just because, at least for me, just the mass amounts of compression, that I'm
Yeah.
using. It's just bringing that out even more. And then, yeah, you start, you know, distorting it. But yeah, you got to make do with what you got. Um, so
I thought it was interesting when you were talking about, just to backpedal a tiny bit, you were
yeah,
talking about how the psychology behind production or being a producer is really interesting to you, and it is to me as well. My main mentor, I mean, we've all had a couple, but you and I both had Thomas Ciufo for a little bit, and that guy was fucking crazy. Just the way he got me thinking about things. Okay, let's talk about him for a second. I love that guy, and I love
I
that he
love
like
Thomas so
never
much.
he never complimented me until right at the end of the last
Oh
class that
yeah,
I had with him. He was just like, "Oh,
oh
that was
yeah,
good." I'm like, "Fuck." Every time he'd be like, "How do you do this?" And or even if I knew my mix was better than somebody else's who clearly, didn't put the effort in or the time, he would just be like tear it apart. And I fucking lived for it, man. I
I
love
love.
that guy.
Yeah, no, I never enjoyed. I've never enjoyed getting criticized by someone as much as Thomas. I remember the first time. I think like I was the only one that used parallel compression on drums on a mix, and he was like, really? Oh well, I guess you're a drummer, so you're gonna use parallel compression. I'm like, dude, it sounds cool though, right? And he was just like laughing, and yeah, I think deep down, he thought it was cool, but he just wanted to bust my balls. But
Yeah.
um no, Thomas was, talk about mentoring. He was a huge mentor for me. Just his main advice for me with, just me being a perfectionist about everything. He was like, Jack, you can spend your whole life on one mix to get it perfect, or you can be put out, a bunch of shitty mixes, but be able to say, you did so much more, you know what I mean? And not even just, not even like shitty mixes, but,
Yeah.
just put out more content. And that really stuck with me. And I'm, to this day trying to get over, like, find where that bar is. Like, okay, like this is the best possible version of this song that I can make, and I got to let it go.
Yeah.
Now, to this day, I can I you can play me anything I've done and I'll pick it apart. I'll be like, "Oh my god, that guitar's out of tune here. Oh, that snare's out of time. Oh, that thing, the singer, the breath sounds weird." I'm a psychopath when it comes to that stuff. I always, in fact, I with Mike Bridge, and I'm always like sending him like, "Oh, dude, did you hear this bad edit here?" And he'll be like, "Dude, you're like actually insane." Or I'll play him we'll be listening to a drum take, and I'll be like, do you hear that like in the mix?" And be like, "What?" Like, no, you hear that little weird frequency? Like, dude, no, you're insane. Uh, but
Truffaut had this amazing thing he would do with me, and that's how you know he's a good teacher, is different approaches for every single student, and it's always like the perfect approach. For me,
right.
it was I was cocky because I had already been making some money doing it before I got into college. Like I was already recording bands like in my scene, so super fucking cocky. Like thought I knew everything, and so every time he'd ask a question or I would do something, he'd be like, "This is how you do it." He'd be like, well, kind of. And he'd give me like three different ways to do it. And that stuck with me. And that's been huge for
Oh
me, is
yeah.
always trying to like, maybe, maybe, maybe I do this too often, but I always try to reinvent how I do things and like see if there's other ways or different combinations of things that I could use to get a similar sound and see if I like one approach slightly better. God bless that man. That guy's fucking
He's
awesome.
he's great. I'll say, going off that, I've found that with mixing that, you know, with so many plugins at our disposal, and we're, you know, we're so lucky to even have this stuff to use, but there really is so many different ways to make, you know, one sound. You know what I mean? If you get what I'm saying, you know, like there's, and I've seen this tons in URM Academy, but just, you know, getting say like a lo-fi roomy drum sound, like, oh, you know, I'm gonna use this stock Pro Tools EQ and get it, but then someone's like, no, I'm just gonna use Decapitator and get it that way. And I've learned a lot just from doing that. There really is no one right way to do something. And that was probably my least favorite part about learning recording, you know, in school. I feel like sometimes there's this kind of rule book, and I don't really agree with that. I mean, I think there's a line, you know, but it's again like
Dumb rules they would teach you. Like, I heard so much, never add EQ, just subtract it. And then now with my mixes, it's like, how do I make the snare sound good? Crank 8K shelf on an SSL, like 15 decibels. There you go. There's your fucking snare sound, right?
My favorite Chris Lord Alge quote. He's like, why do we put EQ on a snare drum? Because it sounds better, right? And it's like,
nobody's gonna die.
yeah. Like, why everyone's so like, my favorite would be when you know, they'd be going through our sessions and stuff, be like, okay, I see you added an EQ to this guitar. Why did you boost, you know, like 2 decibels of 7K? And it's like, why? And it's like, is it that bad to say because it sounded good or it worked for me? I'll never understand that. And I mean, no one except maybe me is going to notice, you know, you boosted 2 decibels 7K, but I don't know.
Somebody should tell Chris Lord Alge he's been doing it wrong all this time.
Oh, right. Yeah. I'm sorry. Let me show you all my platinum records. You know, it's, man, yeah, that guy is doing something wrong.
I only met 2 college engineers, like teachers who I thought knew their shit. It was Ciufo and then this other guy, Neil Anderson, Himmelsbach, that I met at my community college. The rest of them, it kind of just seemed like they started teaching 20 or 30 years ago and they stopped learning. They just like, this is what the book says. This is what you do.
Yeah.
I never even heard the word glue until I started working at a studio in my early 20s.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Like, what the fuck? That's like the most fundamental concept of mixing, and nobody said it.
Right. Yeah. Why are you like the word? Also, it's so intuitive too, like mix. What are you doing? You are throwing multiple layers of something and making them work together. You know what I mean? Like you're making a stew. Like I don't, some people still don't understand that. Some of the artists I work with, I'm all about adding stuff and seeing if it works, you know what I mean? And I'll say, you know, we can always take it out, you know? And yeah, it's just, I'm all about finding things that work well together. And, you know, even if you don't really hear them, you know, it's there, and it you know, it makes stuff sound big. And that's probably where I get the most blowback, like what you were saying before, working with bands, and you'll be like, you know, like, oh, like it would sound so much better if you did that, and then be like, well, no, like this is how the song is, but it's like, no, well, like I get it, it's your song, but try adding an octave under the chorus or something. Try adding this organ part or something. You don't have to, you know what I mean? It's just a little, you know, you add a little salt and pepper. You're not making a salt and pepper soup. You know what I mean? You're not supposed to taste it. It's supposed to just be flavor. And I think a lot of people don't get that. And it cracks me up because, and people ask me, they're like, why, and then this isn't me too my horn, but like, why does your shit sound so big? And it's just like, because I like, I just like texture. Like I like to be able to, I like to add different harmonic elements to songs, and I don't know. And I'm also crazy. I'm always, it's never done for me. I always like to add stuff. I'm never like guitar, drums, bass, vocals, like we're done. I'm the fun for me is adding all like, the icing on top. And it's yeah, so it kind of goes both ways. Like sometimes I'm the guy that is really into doing that, and then sometimes I'll be starting drums with an artist and they'll be like, oh, like maybe we'll try like horns in the bridge. And I'm like, whoa, 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 let's keep going. That's like down the line. I like your thinking. I'm glad we're working together, but like let's, what is the fundamental of the song? And again, I'm still learning with that arrangement stuff. And yeah.
I've been learning to strip stuff back. That's been big for me. Like I felt like I did way too much for a while, and especially nowadays, like the last couple of years, I still work on heavy music a lot, but like I don't really play it anymore. Like I play like shoegaze or like post punk or like, and the hardest part of those genres for me on guitar is like, as a heavy guitarist, you want to always be doing something, be loud, be big. When you're playing post punk, like Joy Division kind of stuff, like the guitar is not the focus. So just finding the little thing you can do to fit yourself in there without being obtrusive. I'm also just I've started singing recently just because I'm fucking 27 and I can't find anybody to sing for me. Because nobody fucking plays in bands when you're almost 30. Fuck. Um, so like it's something I've noticed now that I've been starting to do that. One, I'm terrible. Two, I've noticed that I used to have this problem. I'd never leave room for vocals in a song. Like, and
Mm.
now that I'm starting to think like that, I'm noticing my guitar is getting less busy. And all of a sudden it opens up the vocals to be able to do more interesting melodies because I used to feel like with the guitars that were so busy, I either wouldn't be able to think of a melody or the melody would be like just kind of so and I couldn't experiment with it at all, or it would just clash. So that's been really, really interesting for me, trying to remove myself as a guitarist and think more like I guess like a producer, if you want to say that.
Yeah, yeah. I think the biggest thing is, what is the listener going to pull their attention to in an arrangement. And it's for me is, there's like the lead instruments, there's the things that are going to stick out that you want the listener to hear, and then there's stuff that just is going to create vibe and it's just kind of be there for texture. And that to me is like, that's my favorite thing to do. It's kind of, I think, what separates the men from the boys is what is going to take that to the next level. And I would never really consider myself a singer. However, I do a lot of kind of studio vocals, if you will, a lot of like, just kind of backing vocals, or like woes and ohs and stuff like that, where they can be tuned or whatever. And um but just, I heavily filter them so there's still room in the rest of the mix. But that kind of stuff really is important to me in a song, just to like put you on this journey and have, you know, different, you know, different slopes and stuff to it. One of the biggest things I hear, I feel like, in music today is just, other than just so loud and heavily compressed, but just it's a little kind of stale. And I'm always about, making things smaller and then making them bigger and then making them even more big. And um yeah, so I think that's super important.
Yeah, automation. Speaking of separating the men from the boys, that's something my mentor would say a lot when it came to automation. He's like,
Yeah.
any monkey can get a good static mix, which I didn't agree with at the time. But he's like, anybody can make a static mix sound good. Automation is what actually is gonna make your song breathe and sound interesting. Like that's really truly what separates the amateurs from the pros with this stuff. And that's been super fun getting more into that over the last year or two. Just trying to
Yeah.
make each part feel different, trying to push things forward and then have them sit. Super fun. But it's like you're saying with perfectionism that you can just fucking automate everything forever and
Yeah,
never finish the song.
I like to not to like argue your point of automation, but I've also found that you can do less automation if the arrangement is good from the get-go.
My
That class
man. Yeah.
that classic, like the song mixes itself. It's like, okay, the last chorus, we're gonna bring the guitars louder. Okay, you could do that, but why don't you just add another layer of like an octave or something, or add power chords, or or something else, even just like an organ or something that's going to bring more harmonic content out, that's going to make the song feel bigger without bringing up more guitars.
Mm.
I hate guitars, by the way. I hate, like, I just, my least favorite part of mixing. Like, if I could choose, like, I'd be like, you can only use a Marshall, like JCM 800, and
Yeah.
like, and Les Paul for rhythms, and like a Telly for leads, and then like that's it. Like nothing else. You can't do anything else.
You'd think I'd love it, but no, it's the same thing. Like to me, I guess just because I'm a guitarist, I feel like nothing I do ever makes them sound as good as the people I'm trying to emulate.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah,
drums are the most fun by far because that's the most transformative. You're taking it just from the raw audio to the big overproduced modern sound, which is such a thrilling thing to do as an engineer. But
yeah,
guitars, like if you go overboard with them, it just sounds wrong. They
yeah,
start
yeah.
sounding flat and shitty and fake.
Yeah, I have a really hard time like making guitars sound super good. My main influence is, whenever I'm really struggling with that kind of stuff, is I put on a Neil Avron record, like especially the Yellow Card records. Like that guitar sound that's my thing. That's
Mm.
my favorite tone. Just sounds just so good. I don't know how he does. Just, they're just so wide and powerful, and they sound louder than everything else, but it still sounds good. You know what I mean? And those are my favorite kind of guitars. But sorry, I forgot what we were talking about before. I feel like I
Doesn't.
went on a rant,
Well,
but
I mean, that's the fun of this is like we never.
yeah,
It's so rare to get to talk about this shit. So like it's fun
yeah.
just to go on tangents and like go off somewhere, man. But I think we're gonna have to cut it short, not because I'm not having fun. I'm having a ton of fun, but because I have editing to do, and I don't
No,
want to keep putting it off.
dude, all good. I was about to say, like, this has been super fun. I do not get to nerd out like this.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Very frequently.
it would be great to do this again sometime, or just like feel free to reach out and just chat and bullshit, man. Um,
Definitely.
really, really good reconnecting with you.
Yeah,
Seriously.
yeah, man. You too. This is really fun.
Yeah, hell yeah. Well, you got anything you want to plug before we wrap this up?
Um, I'm got a couple unannounced projects I'm working on. I'll be hopefully releasing another song with my friend Mikey. He goes by Fong DeLong soon, another cover song. And I'm still working on some of my band Backyard Games' songs. And yeah, yeah, hit me up if you want to work together.
Dude,
It's
absolutely.
www.o'connellsound.com. It's at Jack on Drums on Instagram. Um, yeah, I'm always down to talk music. So yeah.
Yeah, if I ever have anything sort of in that pop punk style or something that needs drums, I'll
Yeah.
hit you up, man, for
Yeah,
sure.
awesome. Yeah, I'll do whatever, man. I'm doing a bluesy, folky project. I'm doing more of like a grungy style. So yeah, dude, I'll do whatever.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I got some grunge grungy band, like a bunch of kids who just got out of high school coming what, 2 weeks from now? Fuck, I gotta finish up my other projects. Oh shit.
Yeah, I got the worst habit of doing that, like, not finishing some, starting the next thing. It just, next thing I know, my hard drive is just in detailed list format, and I'm like, what I don't even recognize this artist anymore.
Oh fuck. I just have so much to do. But that's part of the fun. It
Yeah,
also keeps the existential dread away when every single day you're like, I don't have time to be depressed, man. Like I got shit
right,
to fucking take care
right.
of.
Yeah, I got drums to edit, man. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, man. We're gonna wrap this up.
Cool.
Thanks for joining.
All right, thanks, man.
No problem.